Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be doing a thrift flip. I wanted to do some upcycled denim. I'm pretty excited about learning how to do bleaching and distressing and patching and applique on my jeans. And so I headed to Goodwill to get some denim, and lo and behold, I walked in and it was nothing but Halloween. And it was just so colorful and crazy and insane. And I started looking and I became very inspired. There was just racks and racks of Halloween costumes and t-shirts and all kinds of things. And I looked and looked, and I was thinking about, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and I did some little Halloween outfits for my neighbor girls. This is before I had any grandchildren. And they turned out so cute, and I don't know, I kind of had a flashback and I want to try something new. So I bought all the jack-o'-lantern t-shirts that I could find, and I made a little ruffled Halloween princess dress. It's so fun and cute and easy. I would like to explain, how about this side? Is that better? Well, how about if I just hold it right in front of my face? Ding. I want to explain that, usually I'm making something small and I need this much room. And I set up my camera, I set up my light, I stay in the same place, my sewing machine's over here, my glue gun's over there, and I have it all ready. And this was a little bit more involved, and so I started off in my kitchen, and then I moved to the serger, into the machine, and I was trying to get all these different angles and moving the light and moving the camera, and even the audio is a little odd, in the house. It's kind of echoey in the kitchen. Anyway, it's not my usual video. I'm just learning as I go, and I hope you enjoy it. I had a lot of fun making this project. It's fun and easy, so let's get started. Let's start with a giant stack of orange Halloween t-shirts. These are all from my local Goodwill. I actually went to 2 Goodwills, and I mostly shopped for kids shirts. So there are a million with just like an orange t-shirt with a jack-o'-lantern face. And so I do have a lot of those. But then you also need some with a little something different. And I think all of these are going to be great. But the first thing I need to determine is which one of these shirts is going to be my bodice. This is definitely in the running. It's nice and clean and bright, and it's a size 3T. But this seems kind of small for a 3T. This one also will work, but I don't think a mom wants her 3-year-old daughter to be wearing something that says witch on the front, but I'm not sure. And then the other one that I like is kind of similar to this one, but then when I pulled it out, I washed all of this, and then I realized this has a lot of stains on it, so I can probably use it, but I won't use it as my bodice. I'm gonna go ahead and go with this one. So all of these shirts can be featured because we will be cutting 5-inch squares for the first tier. I'll explain more in a minute. Then 4-inch squares for the second tier. And then we're gonna cut 3-inch strips from the hems of these shirts to make the bottom tier, the more ruffled tier. So I am looking for a variety of shades of orange. I especially like this sort of a tie-dyed one back here, because even though I won't feature this kind of scary jack-o'-lantern in the child's dress because it's just such a large scale, but I will be able to use this, the hem, for the bottom ruffle, which I think is going to be cute. Anyway, to get started, I'll move this out of the way, and we will just start with this one. And I'm gonna sort of lay this out nice and flat. And all of these are washed and dried in my machine. And we're going to make, the shape of this dress is sort of like a baby doll. So we're gonna start with this. I wish it had long sleeves. I'll show you my original dress. This one, I cut it below the eyes, so only the eyes and the nose are showing in the bodice, and it had long sleeves, which I like. I didn't find very many with long sleeves, and so I wanted to use this one. But you can see how we have a, you know, like I definitely fussy cut these 5-inch squares, and then the back of the shirt would be the solid square. So it's like print, solid, print, solid, print, solid. The other thing that was fun is that maybe from one shirt, here's the face of the kitty cat, and then here's something where it said something about being perfect. And I think there's another piece of the kitty cat somewhere on here. But anyway, it's fun to sort of say, oh, here's the legs of the witch, and then, you know, here's the dress of the witch. And it's fun to sort of, you know, cut the front of the shirt, the image from the front of the shirt, into different parts and pieces. So anyway, this is what we're making. This is how it looks. And the front of the dress is shorter than the back. That's what I meant to show you here. It's just about an inch difference, but I really do like that. So I decided I was gonna go with this one. So I have several rulers and several pens. I have a 5-inch square ruler, a 4-inch square ruler, and a 3-inch strip ruler. These were just out of my stash. I just have these. And you know, there is a seam allowance here. So I want to get the eyes and the nose maybe. So I think I'll just go to the bottom edge of the nose. And I feel like that way we'll get the, you know, probably top half of the nose and the eyes and the bow. So I'm gonna draw a line. I also have a tape measure. I'm working in my kitchen today. Okay, that looks pretty close. So I'm gonna draw a line here, across, and then on the back, I'm gonna go an inch lower. So that's the height of the front line. And then I'm gonna just go an inch lower in the back. And then to slant down from the front to the back here, I'm gonna use my CD and use this as a pattern and connect like this so that I can cut here and then across here. And I'm going to cut with the shirt sort of folded along the side seam. So I'm gonna cut boop, 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 like that. And then, of course, from this, I see this is kind of scooped right here, and so ordinarily I would just boop, cut this off, but I don't think we can use that one. So here is the start. This is our bodice. And I'm going to measure it. So it's 11 across, which means it's 22 all the way around. I want to multiply that by 2, which makes 44, which will be 9 5-inch squares. But since there's so many seam allowances, I'm going to add one and do 10 5-inch squares. I'm going to cut the 5-inch squares in pairs. Considering seam allowances, I'm sure that parts of these will be chopped off, but this is a good start. So 5-inch square. And the other thing to keep in mind is the next row is going to be 4-inch squares, and I actually need more 4-inch squares. So I might go ahead and also do a 4-inch square, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's just do 2 5-inch squares. And you can see that I'm going to cut through, which means I can't use this bottom edge because I don't have 3 inches here. Then just cut these out. How many did I say I needed? Oh yeah, that was 10, I think, 10 5-inch squares. But I think I'll do a couple of extras. I also have some already cut out from my first dress, and I can tell there was a little fold in the fabric there on the back. I have a couple left over from my first one. There's our first 4 5-inch squares. And left over from my first project, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm really on my way. I'll just do a couple more 5-inch squares. I know that I'm not going to use this for the bodice because of all these stains. And I don't mind buying things that have stains because I actually like to recycle them. But I really want to feature something with stains. So let's just get one of the eyes and the bow. And we can use this. I'm going to look at the back. The back doesn't have any stains. So I think I'll cut out, yeah, the front has stains. I think I'll cut out at least 1 more 5-inch square and 1 4-inch square. You get the idea. Let me finish cutting my 5-inch squares and then I'll come back. Here are my 5-inch squares. I'm alternating a print with a solid. So it's print, solid, print, solid, print, solid. I think I actually wound up with 12, which will be plenty. And then for my 4-inch squares, I'm going to do the same thing. Trying to, cut the interesting parts from the front. Like this, I can probably get the unicorn's face and maybe this little pumpkin. So I can definitely get some. This also has stains, but I think I actually have another one of these. This one came up a lot at the store. I can put that spider right in the middle, and then I can also maybe get a couple of the spider webs. And then before I cut out the square, I'm going to show you how I cut the hem, the bottom ruffle. This is just a 3-inch ruler. Cut this out. And you need a long strip at the bottom for the hem. It doesn't have to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect. And then sometimes the tag, there's the tag. Sometimes the tag is right there on the side seam, and so that's where I'm going to cut it apart. Actually, this isn't, usually the tag is sewn in the side seam, and this one is in the hem, so I'm just going to cut that whole business off. So here's a strip for the bottom hem. Before I move into my sewing room, I wanted to show you how I lay these out. So I'm going to do I need at least 10 of these squares, and I'm going to alternate solids and prints like this. So here's how I think I'm going to do this. I like having the jack-o'-lantern mouth here, one side and then the other side. I thought about just piecing them together. That's kind of cute. And then I could add this one over here maybe. That might work. Anyway, I'm going to sew these side by side. 5 and then this one and then da-da-da-da-da-da. I think I'll do it like that. And I'm using my serger. And we'll see how this works. Here's my serger and my stack of 5-inch squares. So I'm just going to sew them side by side. This will be on one end. So I'm starting with this one and then face down. And I'll just keep adding them and chaining them. I'm sure I'm gonna run out of this one cone. Can you see that? This one, it's almost empty, but I have the next one ready to go. So let's see how far I can get playing kind of like bobbin chicken, but with the serger. Okay, there we go. There is my strip of 5-inch squares. Now I'm going to move over to my sewing machine where I have my gathering attachment set up, and I'm going to gather up the top edge of this strip. I hope that I have my, camera set up so that you can see this. I'm going to feed the top edge of this strip through my pleating attachment on my Bernina. And I have a separate video that just describes how this works, but I'm setting it on the setting of 6, which means that every 6th stitch, it will add a pleat. And hopefully, as I work this through, you'll be able to see what's happening. Now I do want to join these ends, but before I do that, I'm going to sort of match this up to the bodice to make sure that this is the right length. There's my bodice. It seems so small, doesn't it? Okay, so I want to make sure that this pleated tier is about the right length. Okay, I have a couple of extra squares. It goes to about here. I have about 1 extra square, so I think that's fine because I can stretch this. So I think it's going to be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead back to my serger and just join these ends right here. There are a total of 10 squares, so you might think 5 on the front, 5 on the back, but actually I don't want the side seams of this tier to be exactly on the side seam of the bodice. So I'd rather have the center of the square match up to the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this with the ruffles on the top all the way around like this. And then I'm going to stitch this ruffled tier to the bottom edge of the bodice. I have this pinned and ready to go. I will be stitching from the pleated side, the little skirt side, and you can see the direction of the pleats. And so I want to definitely be going with the direction of the pleats. I don't want the front of my presser foot to hit each one of these open pleats. I want them to go along see how they're already down in this direction? So that's the way I want to sew. I want to start in kind of a random spot, and I'm going to try to stitch right over that previous stitching from the pleater. The tier was slightly bigger around than the bodice. Oh, by the way, these are right sides together. And so I did kind of have to, stretch the bodice a tiny bit to get it all to fit. It's, it's not perfect. So it really isn't. And the pleater, every time it hits one of these seams that's serged, it kind of gets thrown off a little bit. So believe me, it's not perfect, but it's still going to turn out great. There we go. We're off to a good start. Now I'm going to use my tape measure and measure the actual, let's start right here at the kitty cat. And I'm going to measure the exact bottom edge of this tier. See how long this is. The bottom edge of this is 44 inches. So my next tier, the squares are 4 inches. So that's obviously 11 squares, but I need to double that. So I need 22 squares at least, and then a couple extra for the seam allowance. Okay, I think that's right. So 22 minimum, but in order to accommodate all those seam allowances, I'm going to cut 26 4-inch squares. I'm not sure I have exactly that amount yet, so I'm going to make sure, and then I'm going to chain stitch them on my serger. Here are my 26 4-inch squares serged together into a long, long line. I did not join the ends. I'm going to run the very top edge of this strip through my ruffling attachment. There's my ruffle. And now I'm going to place it right sides together to the bottom edge of the top tier. So the only thing I know for sure is that there's a cat in here somewhere, and I don't want the cat to wind up right on the front because we already have a cat in the front. There we go. So I'll make sure this goes more toward the back. I'll put the spider here. That looks good. And I don't want to, I want to avoid having the seams match up exactly. All right, so I'm just going to pin this along, and then I'll make sure that it's long enough and it's not too long. And if it is too long, then I'll cut it off. Here we go. The second tier is attached. Oh, and by the way, if you have the energy, you can always sort of top stitch right here. Just push the ruffled edge up and top stitch, but for me, that's a little bit too challenging. So next we're going to add the bottom, the third tier, which is just the hems are already on the strips. The bottom edge of this tier is about 66 inches. So I figure I'm going to need about 100 inches of the very bottom tier, the part that's already hemmed. I'm sure I have 100 inches here. So I'm just going to join these ends on my serger. So an adult hem on an adult t-shirt is about 40 inches. So there's plenty here. So I'm just going to serge the ends together. I'll just join all of this. I'm sure I have enough, and then I'll come back and gather it up with my pleating attachment. This is probably enough for 3 skirts. So I'm going to save whatever's left over. So here's my bottom ruffle and here's my little dress. So I'm going to stitch the ruffle to the bottom of this dress, to the bottom of the second tier. But first I'm going to sort of pin it. So I'm going to just kind of loosely pin it to make sure that, just like this, I'll just kind of pin it right sides together all the way around, and then I'll figure out how long this should be and I'll sew the ends together. I have this all pinned, and right above the spider is kind of where these are coming together, and I will cut this. And I still have all of this left over, plenty left over. I'm going to go over to my serger and serge this together, and just as a little tip or a hack or whatever, whenever I serge these together with the hem, I start at the hemmed edge. Because if you start here and then you go toward the hem, sometimes you get like this weird sort of a stretch. And every time there's a seam, there's like a boing, kind of goes, I don't know, like a little point there. And I just get better results if I start here at this folded. And then it just works better. I don't know what to say or how to explain it, but trust me, start at the hem. So I serge this together, and now I think I'm going to move this and start over with the pinning, because I don't like to have, I have these two seams pretty close together right in the front. This is the front of the skirt. So I'm going to move this section around to the back. So this is all pinned and ready to stitch. I'm going to stitch in this direction. And this is the bottom tier, which has the built-in hem. And I'm going to just stitch it right sides together to that second tier, the center tier. And here we go, we're done. Now, to be honest, this little patch said the word spooky, but once I hemmed it, I lost the Y and the S, and it only says pook, which I just kind of regretted that. That's kind of dumb. So I covered it up with a bow. That's why that bow is there. And underneath, I added a little petticoat that I also got at Goodwill. And I'll just show you how it looks all the way around. The other thing I realized when I had this little pook issue is that there's no reason why you have to make these 5-inch squares. I could have made this 5 by 7 and, you know, gotten the whole word in there, and it wouldn't have made any difference, right? So now I'm kind of anxious to make another one, because this just turned out so cute. Anyway, I hope you feel inspired to make something like this for a little Halloween princess in your life. Thank you for watching Rick Rack Ruby. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.